"She's not one of us," his sister said, her voice smooth but sharp enough to slice through the laughter and music echoing across the grand hall, and in that single moment, everything seemed to slow down. The clinking glasses, the polite smiles, the carefully curated elegance of a billionaire family celebrating yet another perfect milestone. Because now, standing beneath the golden chandeliers, Zara wasn't just the new wife, she was the outsider. The disruption, the question no one wanted to answer out loud, and yet there she stood, calm, composed, her chin slightly lifted, her eyes steady, as if she had already expected this moment long before it arrived. Because Zara had never been the kind of woman who walked into rooms hoping to be accepted, she walked in knowing she belonged wherever she chose to stand. But this family, this empire, operated on a different kind of logic, a logic built on legacy, power, old money, and an unspoken hierarchy that no one dared challenge. And Ion, the billionaire brother, the man who had chosen her, stood beside her with a quiet tension in his jaw, because even he knew this wasn't just a passing comment, this was a line being drawn, a silent declaration that Zara would have to fight for every inch of space she occupied here. And as the evening continued, the questions began, dressed up as curiosity but laced with judgment. "So, Zara, where exactly are you from? What does your family do? How did you and Ion meet?" Each question polite on the surface but probing underneath, searching for cracks, for reasons, for proof that she didn't belong. But Zara answered each one with effortless grace, never over-explaining, never shrinking, her voice steady, her words simple. "My mother is a teacher," she said at one point, "and my father taught me that respect is something you earn, not inherit." And though she didn't raise her tone, the impact of her words landed heavily across the table, a quiet challenge to everything this family stood for. And Alina, because of course it was Alina, the sister who had spoken first, leaned back with a faint smile, her eyes gleaming with a kind of controlled disdain. "Some people," she said, swirling her drink, "just get lucky, I suppose, ending up in places they were never meant to be." And for a second, there it was, the moment everyone had been waiting for, the chance for Zara to falter, to hesitate, to reveal that she didn't quite fit into this world. But instead, Zara simply placed her glass down, met Alina's gaze directly, and replied, "And some people confuse privilege with worth." And just like that, the balance shifted, the air in the room tightening as if something invisible had cracked open, and Ion, watching her, realized that this wasn't going to be a quiet adjustment, this wasn't going to be a simple blending of worlds. This was going to be a collision. And in the days that followed, that collision began to take shape in ways no one had anticipated, because Zara didn't retreat, she didn't try to mold herself into their expectations. Instead, she observed, she listened, she paid attention to the things that others overlooked. The way the staff lowered their eyes when certain family members walked in, the way decisions were made behind closed doors and presented as inevitabilities, the way silence hung heavy in places where questions should have existed. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to understand that this empire, for all its polished brilliance, wasn't as flawless as it appeared, that beneath the luxury and success lay compromises, choices made at the expense of people who would never sit at tables like these. And once she saw it, she couldn't unsee it, which meant she couldn't ignore it either. And when she finally brought it up to Ion, expecting perhaps resistance but hoping for understanding, she was met with something far more complicated: hesitation, deflection, the quiet defense of a system he had spent his entire life inside. "It's not that simple," he told her, running a hand through his hair. "This is how things work." And Zara, standing there, realized that this was the real divide, not wealth, not background, but perspective. "Then maybe how things work is the problem," she said, and from that moment on, everything began to change, not all at once, not dramatically, but in subtle, undeniable shifts. She started asking questions in rooms where no one questioned anything. She spoke to employees who weren't used to being heard. She looked at documents, contracts, decisions, and began connecting dots that others had long learned to ignore, and it wasn't long before those dots formed a picture. Land deals that displaced communities, partnerships that prioritized profit over ethics, a pattern of behavior that was perfectly legal but deeply flawed. And when she confronted Ion with it, laying the truth out in front of him, there was a moment. A long, heavy moment, where he could either step toward her or retreat into everything. He had always known, "This is business," he said finally, but even he didn't sound convinced, and Zara shook her head. "No, this is choice." And with that, the line between them became impossible to ignore. Tension spread through the family like a slow-burning fire, Alina growing more openly hostile, sensing the shift but unable to control it. "She's trying to tear everything apart," she told anyone who would listen. But what she didn't realize was that some people were already starting to listen to Zara instead, because for the first time, someone was saying the things they had only ever thought in silence, and then came the breaking point. A media leak, a story exposing some of the company's most questionable dealings, and suddenly, the world was watching, the perfect image cracking under pressure, and all eyes turned to Zara, because of course they did, the outsider, the disruptor, the easiest one to blame. I knew it, Alina said, her voice cold with satisfaction. This is exactly what she wanted. And Ion hesitated, and that hesitation cut deeper than any accusation. Did you do this? He asked, and in that moment, something inside Zara shifted, not anger, not heartbreak exactly, but clarity, because she realized that trust, once questioned, was never the same. If I had, she replied quietly, I wouldn't hide it. And then she walked away, leaving behind not just the room, but the version of herself that had tried to fit into their world, because now she understood, she wasn't there to fit in, she was there to stand apart. And the next day, instead of retreating, instead of letting the narrative define her, Zara stepped forward, facing the media directly, her voice steady, her message clear, and what she said didn't just address the scandal, it reframed it. She spoke about accountability, about the cost of unchecked power, about the people who were affected by decisions made in rooms like the ones she had just walked out of. And her words resonated, not because they were dramatic, but because they were true, and truth has a way of cutting through even the most carefully constructed illusions. Pressure mounted, investors demanded answers, the board was forced to act, and slowly, inevitably, change began. Policies were reviewed, decisions re-evaluated, structures rebuilt, and through it all, Ion watched, realizing piece by piece that Zara hadn't destroyed his world, she had exposed it, challenged it, and ultimately, given it a chance to become something better. And when he finally went to her, not as the man who had questioned her, but as the one who now understood her, he didn't offer excuses, he offered honesty. I didn't see it before, he admitted, and Zara, after a long pause, nodded. Now you do. And that was enough, because this was never about winning an argument, it was about changing a reality, and in the end, as the dust settled and the empire stood not as it once was but as something reshaped, something more aware, more accountable, Alina found herself standing across from Zara once again, but this time, there was no smirk, no superiority, only a quiet, reluctant acknowledgement. You were never one of us, she said, and Zara, with the same calm confidence she had carried from the very beginning, replied, I was never meant to be. Because the truth was, belonging had never been the goal, transformation had been, and in a world obsessed with fitting in, Zara had done something far more powerful. She had changed the rules entirely, proving that sometimes, the greatest strength lies not in becoming part of the system, but in having the courage to stand outside it and demand that it becomes better, and that is exactly what she did.